Tom Bradley stood in the parking lot of Henderson County Courthouse, holding a deed that had cost him exactly $1. The weathered document felt heavier than it should have in his calloused hands. At 53, the widowed construction foreman had learned that life rarely offered second chances. But sometimes, when you weren't looking for them, they found you anyway. His 15-year-old daughter, Sophie, waited in their old pickup truck, earbuds in, lost in whatever world teenagers escape to these days. She'd been quieter since her mother passed 2 years ago, and Tom knew this move to rural Tennessee was as much about giving her space to heal as it was about his own need for a fresh start. The cabin sat on 12 acres of overgrown land, 40 miles from the nearest town. It had been abandoned for decades, part of an estate sale where nobody else had bothered to bid. $1. Tom still couldn't quite believe it. "It's pretty rough, kiddo," Tom said as they pulled up the winding dirt road. "But the bones are good. We can make it work." Sophie pulled out her earbuds and surveyed the property through the windshield. The cabin was small, maybe 800 square feet, with a sagging porch and windows clouded by years of neglect. But the setting was breathtaking. Rolling hills covered in oak and maple trees, a small creek running along the eastern border, and a silence so complete it seemed to wrap around them like a blanket. "It's quiet," Sophie said, and Tom heard something in her voice that might have been relief. "Too quiet?" he asked, concerned. "No, Dad, it's nice." The first week was spent making the place livable. Tom had taken early retirement from the construction company, using his pension to buy basic materials. Together, he and Sophie patched the roof, replaced broken windows, and cleared decades of accumulated debris. It was on the Friday evening, as they were pulling up the rotted kitchen floorboards, that Sophie's pry bar hit something that wasn't wood. "Dad, there's something under here." Tom knelt beside his daughter and carefully removed more boards. Underneath, wrapped in oilcloth and tucked into a metal box, they found it. Bundles and bundles of old letters tied with faded ribbon. "Are they valuable?" Sophie asked, her voice hushed. Tom lifted one of the bundles carefully. The return address read Lieutenant James Morrison, 2nd Airborne Division, somewhere in France, 1944. They were addressed to "My dearest Eleanor Morrison." "I think they might be priceless," Tom said softly, "but not in the way you're thinking." They spent the evening reading by lamplight. James Morrison had written to his wife Eleanor almost every day during World War II. The letters chronicled everything: his fears, his hopes, his desperate love for the woman waiting at home, and his dreams of the life they'd build together after the war. "My darling Eleanor, today I saw the most beautiful sunset over the French countryside, and all I could think was how much I wish you were here to see it with me. But then I remembered that sunsets are even more beautiful when you have someone to come home to." At the bottom of the box, they found Eleanor's responses. Every single letter she'd written back, returned to her after the war ended. James had made it home. They'd had their life together. "Why are they here?" Sophie asked. "Under the floor?" Tom found the answer in the final letter, written in Eleanor's careful handwriting many years later. "To whoever finds these someday, James and I lived 53 wonderful years together in this cabin. We raised 4 children here, celebrated countless birthdays and anniversaries, weathered storms, both literal and figurative. When James passed last spring, I couldn't bear to throw away these letters. They hold too much love, too much life. But I couldn't take them with me to the assisted living facility either. So I'm hiding them here in the floorboards of our kitchen, where we shared so many meals and dreams. If you found them, it means someone new has made this place their home. That makes me happy. Love doesn't die when people do. It just finds new places to grow. Take care of each other, and take care of our little piece of heaven. Eleanor Morrison, 1987. Sophie wiped tears from her eyes. "Dad, we have to find their family." "We will, sweetheart. We absolutely will." It took 3 weeks and several phone calls to local historical societies, but they finally tracked down James and Eleanor's grandson, Michael Morrison, who lived 2 states away. When Michael arrived the following Saturday, Tom was struck by how much he resembled the young soldier in the old photographs they'd found with the letters. I can't believe you found these, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion as he carefully turned through the pages. Grandma Eleanor mentioned them once, but after she passed, we searched everywhere. We thought they were lost forever. They belong with your family, Tom said simply. Michael looked up at him with surprise. But legally, they're yours now. The property and everything in it? Tom shook his head. Some things don't belong to anyone. They just get passed along to the people who need them most. Word of the discovery spread, as news tends to do in small communities. Within a month, Tom received his first phone call from a collector in Nashville. Mr. Bradley, I understand you found some wartime correspondence. I specialize in historical documents, and I'd be very interested in discussing a purchase. Those letters could be quite valuable to the right museum or private collector. Tom politely declined. The offers kept coming. A documentary filmmaker wanted to buy the rights to the story. A publisher was interested in turning the letters into a book. A historical society offered to purchase the entire collection for preservation. The final offer came from a wealthy businessman who collected wartime memorabilia. Mr. Bradley, I'm prepared to offer you $2.3 million for the complete collection. That's more money than most people see in a lifetime. Tom was quiet for a long moment, looking out the kitchen window at Sophie, who was reading on the front porch, finally seeming like herself again for the first time in 2 years. Sir, I appreciate the offer, but those letters aren't for sale. I could go higher. It's not about the money, Tom said gently. They're not mine to sell. After he hung up, Sophie came inside. Was that another collector? The last one, Tom said. I think I made it clear we're not interested. Dad? Sophie sat down at the kitchen table they'd built from reclaimed barn wood. Are you sure? I mean $2.3 million. Tom pulled up a chair beside her. Sophie, what do you think your mother would say if she knew we'd sold someone's love letters for money? Sophie was quiet for a moment, then smiled. The first real smile Tom had seen from her in months. She'd probably ground us both. Exactly. 6 months later, Tom stood in the same kitchen, now warm and welcoming with Sophie's artwork on the walls and the smell of fresh bread cooling on the counter. Michael Morrison had become a regular visitor, bringing his own children to hear stories about their great-grandparents. The letters remained in a place of honor on the mantelpiece, returned to Michael's family but displayed in the cabin where they belonged with his blessing. Sophie had started a local history project at school, interviewing elderly residents about their own stories of love and loss. That evening, as Sophie worked on homework at the kitchen table and rain drummed softly against the windows they'd replaced together, Tom reflected on the past year. He'd bought the cabin for $1 and been offered millions to sell what he'd found there, but he'd discovered something worth more than any amount of money. The understanding that some treasures aren't meant to be owned, only protected. Love, legacy, the stories that connect us across generations. These things multiply when they're shared, not sold. Sophie looked up from her homework. Dad, I'm glad we moved here. Me too, kiddo. Me too. Outside, the Tennessee hills rolled on under starlight, holding their own secrets and stories, waiting for the next people ready to become stewards of something precious. And in the little cabin that cost $1, a father and daughter had learned that the most valuable things in life are the ones that money can never buy. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what we receive, but what we choose to pass on.